Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another Trek the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We're on volume 24, Interlude Chapter. Bunch of little short chapters in the midst of everything else, which is kind of interesting. So hopefully we can pretty much get through, I think, like 3 chapters in this Mushoku Monday, but we'll see as per usual. But yes, thank you everybody for dropping by for the premiere. Hey chat, hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday after Mushoku Monday. But yeah, greatly appreciate everybody that supports channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships, all that stuff. It means a great deal to me. Last week we had Nathaniel with a super, Adrian with membership. Thank you so much, Adrian. Rosemoy with a super. Thank you. And Oscar with a membership. Thank you for joining the memberships there and getting your emotes, your elite emotes. I just really wish that YouTube would allow the emotes to be used elsewhere. Come on, YouTube. Do what Twitch does. Let you use it everywhere. I'll even go to other people's channels and I go to type something. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to throw in a Zenith emote. Oh, I can't. What the hell? I can't use my Zenith emote. I like my Zenith emote. But anyways, thank you guys so much for your support. It means a great deal to me. But let's just jump into it. I just want to get in here and start kind of chewing this stuff. So let's start off with Interlude Somebody to Someone. A Norn chapter. After I just got done complaining about them not focusing on these other characters, I get a Norn chapter out of nowhere, which is fantastic. But Norn had nothing to do these days after graduating from the University of Magic. There answered my question. I'm like, what is Norn doing right now? Is he going to work somewhere? Is she doing something? She's doing nothing. Nornal is doing nothing. Well, Headmaster Janice invited her to come work at the Magician's Guild, but she was putting off replying. It sounded nice. She'd been the student council president at the university, so they'd probably treat her well. More than that, she was pretty used to having her work recognized and her talents in demand. That's actually really cool, and that technically alluded to that when she became president, President Norn. The idea that everybody started kind of flocking to her, and she started getting her fan club and everything. Like, it wasn't just her looks. It was really the fact that, yeah, it was... The fan club was mostly because she was a klutz and she was super cute, but everybody was relying on her. She was doing a lot of good stuff, which again goes to that whole cool thing they're doing with Norn's character, in that, yeah, despite the fact of her being normal and her not having some special talent, she's a hard worker. It's not that it comes natural to her. She's having to work for it. She liked her talents being in demand, so she was happy to be asked. The thing was, she needed her brother's permission if she was going to join any organization. I immediately questioned that. I was like, what? Oh, yeah, I guess technically it makes sense. She's actually thinking this stuff through. She knew that he'd tell her to do as she liked, but he was a person of importance now. She didn't know much about it, but she was fairly confident that rival factions were involved. If she'd entered the Magician's Guild without thinking it through, she might end up in a faction that was hostile to him. Very good point. That technically does make really good sense there. I mean, to make it really, like, stupidly simple here, yes, she could technically join the Magician's Guild and come to find out, Rudius is like, whoa. No, the Magician's Guild is working for the Man God. Now you're working against me. She'd be a burden, for sure. She wanted to avoid that for various reasons, so she put off the decision. She played with the ever-winsome Lucy and helped out around the house. Living like this might have made her feel restless once. She would always think about how useless she was compared to everyone else. She felt she needed to do better. Oof. Even till now, she still has that feeling of being less. She'd be lying if she said she never got restless to those days of doing nothing. Well, it wasn't nothing. She kept busy. The house was empty. Rudius and his wives were away. Even Aisha was gone. The children were there, though. The youngest one, still a baby. And Lotta had Leo looking after her. He never left her side. Lucy was a different story. She always seemed lonely. Eloise occasionally came over with Clive, and then the two of them played together. Yeah, they're already shipping the two of them. Already shipping Clive and Lucy together. But when they went home, she watched the front door from the second-floor window, or sit in the closet hugging her knees to her chest and stifling tears. She was trying to be strong. Lucy's high maintenance, just like her mom. That's a joke. But she is kind of a crybaby, just like Norn, it seems. Norn wondered if the job that Rudius was doing was so difficult that Lucy had to be strong for. Then again, when Norn was a baby, her dad had a difficult job too. Some jobs were so urgent that they had to be done right away, or things would just keep getting worse. Rudius and the others must have been facing something very difficult. He cared about his family. There was no way he wanted to make his daughter lonely. No one had told Norn the details, but she knew Rudius. All the same, Norn understood how Lucy felt. When her father didn't come home, Norn was lonely too. So whenever Lucy looked lonely, Norn made an effort to play with her. They didn't do anything special. Fishing, looking around the university, reading her a book at the library, shopping, housework. Norn herself didn't have any hobbies, so that limited the options for play. I like this, and again, it was to my joke earlier, but it's technically true here. Yes, there's a lot of similarities here between, or at least parallels that even Norn herself is drawing between herself and Lucy. And the idea that both of them, you know, they had their father was doing something very important and was always away, always doing something, and they were always left behind alone. Now, yes, technically Lucy has a very different situation here in that, yes, for most of Norn's childhood, unfortunately, for a good chunk of Norn's childhood, she didn't have a mother. In this situation, she had a mother. Sylphie's been with her for a long time. Now, I think the difference here is, and it's odd that Norn doesn't really connect it that way, is that, yeah, technically with Norn's situation, her father was always there at her side, and yes, she was allowed to go out and do things. That's how she ran to Regered. But Lucy always had her mother. And yeah, I kind of felt like technically for Lucy's situation, her mother was like spoiling her. I almost felt like coming into this chapter, it was going to be a situation where Lucy's just not used to not having her mother with her. And that's what's affecting her. But yes, we've technically gotten a lot of situations where Ruiz is going to go do something and Lucy's there going, you're going to leave again. You're going to leave again. It really does feel like not so much that Sylphie has spoiled her to the point where Lucy cannot be at Sylphie's side. It's more so the fact that Lucy has always desired the presence of her father. That's what she wants. She's wanted the presence of her father. Lucy enjoyed herself anyway, and lately starting to call her Sister Norn. She'd been especially happy when Norn made her a fishing rod. She started pestering her every day to take her fishing. They went to a river outside the town for better fishing. She could in theory use swords and magic, but wasn't sure that she could protect Lucy in a worst case scenario. She'd have to ask some of the younger students who were adventurers for protection. But they probably had better things to do. She knew if she asked, they would come, of course. The fan club, just holler outside the window, I need my fan, and they'll be there. Like, before you even finish the sentence. She'd pay them in that case. She didn't want to be reliant on them. Norn had promised Lucy they would go fishing outside the town once every 10 days. It was all right as long as they didn't leave town. So she got them to let them fish in a little pond within the university. But Lucy wasn't impressed with the fishing spot. High maintenance, again, she's high maintenance, just like her mom. Maybe because there was no chance of angling a whopper there. Anyhow, today was their regularly scheduled fishing day. She took Lucy to the river to fish, and she caught her biggest yet. She beamed as she showed it off to the younger students on guard duty. It brightened everyone's mood. Aww. Norn got the message when they got home from fishing. She was just telling Lucy about her plans next time as she opened the door. Cliff was at their house. Cliff, who was supposed to be at Millis, where he'd return after graduation. What? Cliff? Oh, Norn, you're home too. It took me a little while to get here. Huh? Yes, but why are you here? You haven't heard? A plague is spreading through the Superb village. They say my assistance is required. Norn couldn't believe it. Her heart pounded. The Superb were in trouble, and Ruiz was calling in all the countries to send in doctors and magicians. Cliff had persuaded the holy country of Millis to let him answer Ruiz's call, and was now hastening to join him. Cliff explained it all, but Norn just glazed over in shock. She probably missed half of it. Ruiz says that even if the Superb die out, that doesn't mean we've lost the battle. But a person he owes a lot is in danger. There it is. There's an answer to that. Because I was questioning that last Mushoku Monday when I read the previous two chapters, did Rudius specify that we need to help out the Superb for this war coming? Which technically made sense. If he was contacting all these kingdoms, the way to get them to hasten was, hey, again, we're contacting you as the Orsig Corporation that will go after Laplace later on. He has to specify why the Superb need help. Hey, come help us, the Superb. Why would we do that? Yeah, we know that we're helping you with this whole Laplace war, but why do we care? Oh, because they're needed for this battle. So he did specify it. But yes, this whole segment is actually answering the question of why is Norn here? I still think it's a bad idea. I still think, in my perspective, from Cliff's perspective, I'd be like, I'm sorry, Norn, I don't know what this plague is, and if I bring you there and get you sick and you die, that's going to be really bad for Rudius. And yes, technically Cliff does care for Norn too. But there is the other side of that, is because Cliff has formed a bond with Norn for so much, yeah, he could probably see that, yeah, this is really important for her, and I want to do this for her. I'll bring her with me. Someone Rudius owed a lot. That got the gears in her head turning. That person, what's their name? Oh, I think it's Regered. The blood drained from her face. Regered's in danger? Wait, that's right. I heard he helped you too, didn't he? Regered had the plague and was on the verge of death. Her mind went blank. Memories of long ago flashed through the back of her mind. The time in Millis when Regered gave her an apple. The time he took her from Millis to Shiraya. It wasn't from Millis. That was, I don't know if that's a oopsie from Refugin or the editors, or I don't know how Seven Seas would goof that up. It wasn't from Millis. It was from the port town. Putting her on his knees and telling her all kinds of stories along the way. Regered, who had been too kind to her, while she cried and sniveled. Regered, who never raised his voice, even when their journey was cut short. I don't know why he would raise his voice to her because the journey was cut short. Do you want to come along too? You might be able to help. Yes, of course. Norn cut herself off when she looked down and saw Lucy looking anxiously and fearful. Lucy looked away the second their eyes met and ran from the room. Norn couldn't chase after her. All she did was reach out, maybe in an unconscious effort to stop her. Grasping only at air, her hand fell to her side. After a moment, Norn finished. No, I'll stay here. Oh, all right. Cliff didn't ask anything else. Didn't tell her what she ought to do, like he normally did. Very cool to kind of note that yes, technically to refresh us here, that entire time that Rudeus was gone to Beggar Continent, he was basically working to essentially guide her, help her out with her situation, and give her advice. And right here, it's kind of pointing out that normally when I'm around him, he's giving me guidance, but now he's not doing it. The obvious answer here for me when I read this is, yeah, he probably sees her as an adult now. You are an adult now. I'm not going to guide you. Back here, you were still a child and you were seeking help and I guided you. Here, you don't need that anymore. You graduated. You're an adult now. I'm not going to do that for you anymore. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. If you change your mind, come to Orsa's office then. He paid his regards to Lilia, then left the house. Apparently he dropped by to thank Lilia for looking after Annalise and Clive. Yeah, here's the answer as to why he somehow ran into Norn. My assumption was going to be that, yes, he was there to look for Annalise, to have her come with him, and he just bumped into Norn at some point. But no, this is saying that, no, he went there to talk to Lilia, say, hey, thank you for looking after Clive and Annalise. I got to go, and then bump. Just happened to bump into Norn. But yeah, it really does play it out like he just assumed that Norn knew. Like when he first greeted her, he's just like assuming, wait, okay, you don't know. Let me fill you on what's going on. On the second floor, Norn checked each room, and Lucy turned up right away. Norn knew all too well the kinds of places children hid at times like this. Again, paralleling herself. She was in Sylphie's room, curled up tight against the side of the bed, hugging her knees. Norn sat down next to her without saying anything. She knew whatever she said, she wouldn't want to hear it. A few quiet minutes passed. Lilia came in to check on them once. But when she seen them, she gave Norn an apologetic look and retreated. Lilia didn't get children. Yeah, I think she's learning, but yeah, the obvious thing, and it's been actually the most interesting thing about Lilia's character, is her lack of normal raising methods. When she was raising Aisha, it wasn't normal. It was not normal in any way. It's like that whole aspect of that Aisha never had a normal childhood. And that was the same for Lilia. She never had a normal parenting. She thought she had to do this. This is what I have to do. And nobody corrected it, or at least she never allowed herself to be corrected. I mean, we had notation of now and then having Paul wanting to pull Aisha into a fun situation, and Lilia would jump in and say, no, I'm raising her how I want to raise her. Back off. So it's a sad reality that I think by now she would have learned a little better, essentially having all these children around the house. But again, she's not their parent. She's not being the parent of them. She's taking care of them as a maid. She probably thought that she wouldn't be of any help. Not that Norn would say that she understood much about children besides herself. Which again, if you draw those parallels, she might be able to see herself in Lucy and help her out with that. Norn sat there, thinking to herself. When Lucy mumbled into her knees, it sounded like she might cry. Are you going away, Sister Norn? No, I'm staying here with you, Lucy. She meant it. Yes, after hearing Roger was in danger, she wanted to rush to his side. She was furious at Rudeus, wondering why he didn't tell her. At the same time, she was resigned. Yeah, that's a sad reality, and I didn't really get into that last week, but that aspect of when she first shows up and she's like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me? What the hell? Why would you not tell me? You know how important Roger is to me, but it's like, girl, you got to understand that I didn't have time to. Rudeus was in a panic. He's trying to find a cure. The last thing he's thinking about is, oh yeah, I should tell Norn because, if I remember correctly, Roger was very special to Norn. No, he's thinking about, how do I find a cure? Who's involved? How did this happen? How do we undo it? Even if she went, there was nothing that she could do. She accepted that was why Rudeus didn't tell her. No, nothing, none of that moment. Girl, none of that. Nowhere in that moment was he thinking, who should I get to have, help? Norn? No, she's useless. No, that's Nornal. Nornal can't do anything for Roger. But yes, I do understand it from the perspective of if he does think that Roger is terminal and nothing can help him, I should get Norn here. She would want to see him in his last moments. There is that aspect. But he wasn't accepting defeat yet. She ought to stay here and look after Lucy. After going to school, Norn had gotten a little more capable at least. She was no worse than average, but she couldn't help with a problem that even bamboozled her brother. What she could do was be here for Lucy. Again, that goes back to, everything with Sylphie and whatnot. This idea that you guys are doing your part by making sure that the house itself is kept. That when he comes home, there's nothing to worry about here. That was their whole purpose there. And I think that's sort of what she's kind of grabbing onto here. At least I can help with this. I'll help with this aspect. It goes back to the whole idea of the stay-at-home wife aspect or the stay-at-home husband aspect, is that everybody's role is very important, and childcare is a massive, massive importance. Who's Richard? He's a person who helped your daddy out a lot. What about you? Huh? When that man said Richard, you made the same face as daddy. Norm wondered what kind of face that was. I'd be scared. She's like, oh gosh, I look like Rudius. Ugh, gross. Whenever he does that creepy smile, you do that same face. Knowing Rudius, it probably said that she had to go help right now. That's right. He helped your big sister, Norn, too. Lucy didn't say anything. When I was about your age, Lucy, my dad, your granddad, he had to go away from your daddy. From daddy? Yes, and your big sister gets lonely easily. So she cried the whole time. But then Richard came, and he was nice and stroked her hair. He taught her games and told her old stories so that she wouldn't be bored. He got her to stop crying. Lucy absorbed this in silence. Norm went back through her old memories, telling Lucy about the time that she spent with Richard. She told her how she met him in Millis, their reunion, and the road to Shariah. Richard was always kind to Norn. He was warm in a different way than her dad. That's an interesting note there, because that was kind of the thing that I was really kind of getting into with her first reuniting on the port town. And the idea that when she first met him, it was almost like he was a Prince Charming. He had that jewel on his forehead. He looked so beautiful and everything. And I was really kind of curious as to if she was feeling like he was this Prince Charming, this romantic Prince Charming, or seeing him as sort of a replacement for Paul. And I really did kind of want to lean more into the idea of a replacement for Paul, because he was almost replacing that pillar. I mean, it works both ways. It works technically both ways. Either way, romantically, like he's this Prince Charming doki doki, or the idea of a father figure, it works the same way. The idea that he took me, put me on his lap, comforted me. That's all that matters. Somebody that comforted me and got me through something. She was losing the only pillar that she had in her life, which was Paul. He was leaving her. She was going to collapse. Richard filled that gap, filled in that hole that kept her sturdy and kept her moving forward. Richard's comforting her was the only reason that she was able to leave Paul's side. Otherwise, I think she would be broken. If she just went with Ginger and her and Aisha just went up north, it would have been a very difficult trip. A very difficult trip. But interesting here to finally have it kind of confirmed from Norn's perspective. He was warm in a different way than her dad. He wasn't a father figure. The more she thought back, the more she wanted to go to Richard. But she thought about how she'd go and find him suffering from the plague. There'd be nothing she could do. She wanted to cry. That's kind of a sad thing there, is almost, and I don't think that's technically what she's saying here. It's more of a fact that, yes, I'm going to go there. I'm going to see him, plagued, and I'm not going to be able to do anything, and I want to cry. But there is an element there that almost is like the hospital aspect. Almost like you don't want to go to the hospital to see somebody that you know is terminal. Like you just going there is painful. You're just going there and watching them dying. You want to be there and support them, but it still doesn't take away from the fact of having to go there. You're confronting something that is inevitable, something that is not going to be very good to look at. It's going to hurt. It's every single time, like when my father was terminal, like every time I went to him, it was painful. It was not fun. And it was more of the fact that you just want to take that from them. You want to take away that pain from them, and you feel so useless. And every time you go to see them, you're being confronted with it again. I don't want to see this, but I have to see it. Richard was, well, he was that sort of person. Finishing, Norn lost track of what she said about him as she spoke. She wasn't sure if she managed to say it in the way that Lucy would understand. Maybe it hadn't been a very interesting story. In the end, she just said it for her own sake. Interesting. Looking to each other, Lucy had stopped crying at some point, and her eyes were fierce. Lucy? That's like what Red Mama told me. She said protecting people is important. That's why you gotta be strong. So, Sister Norn, I thought... Just like a child, she tripped over her words, and her train of thought was jumbled. Lucy stood up. Sister Norn, when you're in trouble, I'll come save you, for sure. You will? Thank you. Norn put on a smile, even though she wasn't sure how Lucy had gotten there after the story. When you're in trouble, I'll come running too, Lucy. No. Norn realized that she misinterpreted what Lucy was trying to say. Lucy didn't want Norn to hold her hand. She was holding Norn's hand. She was pulling on it to help her stand up. Sister Norn, Reserve is yours. You have to go to Reserve, Sister Norn. At last, Norn realized what Lucy was trying to tell her. She was saying to go. She was saying that if Reserve was in trouble, she had to go help. That if it were her, she'd go. She wouldn't turn her back on a person who comforted her when she was lonely. This is one of those moments where it's like, I don't know that Lucy would connect that. I mean, this is like a little bit too deep for a kid like this, but there is a simple element of this. It's almost one of those like, gosh, this girl's like, what is she, like a child genius? I mean, yeah, technically she could be a child genius. They're talking about how the fact that she's been put through so much training, it's almost kind of sad. But she's learning a lot. She's training herself a lot. So you can kind of see her putting this together. But there is almost a simple aspect of this, where it's simple as when I'm listening to Norn talk about this Reserve guy, it almost sounds like she was saved by this guy. And Norn right now, for me, is comforting me and protecting me, and I would go to help her. So it's as simple as just go to him. I would go to you. Oh, I'll go to you too. No. You're not understanding me. I'd go to you, so you should go to him. It's that simple. It's a very simple thing here. It's like that whole aspect of the Mouths of Babes. The idea of it's a simple concept. Stop thinking about all this other crap. Simple from a child's mind as that this is important. Why would you not go? Well, this is. I don't know what you're talking about. Why are you not going? Why are you not going? But it's cute. She wasn't asking me to hold her hand. She was trying to help me, trying to push me to go. Very cute. That if it was her, she'd go. She wouldn't turn her back on a person who comforted her. But Lucy, what about you? Won't you be lonely? I won't be lonely. You taught me all kinds of things. I can fish, and I can read books by myself. She wouldn't be lonely, of course. Norn knew that. Lucy was just saying she'd be strong. Poor Lilia. Poor Lilia's outside the door going, I want to be somebody she can rely on. I'm here. Lilia's here. Lilia's here, and she's more than happy to, join you with something, but you better pick up a rag. If you want to hang out with Lily, you better pick up a rag. Lucy was just saying she'd be strong. She was putting Norn first, repaying the debt she felt. This kid was still only little, but she had been able to make that decision and tell Norn that. I'm going to grow up like you, Sister Norn, so you've got to go. Norn didn't think that she should go, but rather look after Lucy. She didn't want to make her be strong anymore, but she knew that if she didn't go, Lucy wouldn't play with her anymore. Lucy wouldn't boast about the fish that she'd caught with a big smile like she'd worn today. Norn just had that feeling. Don't want to let her down. She stood up. Lucy went around behind her and pushed her bottom like she was trying to tell her to get out of the house already. Yeah, go. I got it. I'm going. Okay. Lucy didn't look lonely anymore. She was inspired, and her face brimmed with pride. Cute. It was cute. Little cheesy. There's a little bit of cheese sprinkled in there, but it's cute. It's cute. That was how Norm was driven out of the house. She was allowed to at least get ready, but she had next to nothing but the clothes on her back. She just straight pushed her out. When she got to Cliff and asked him to take her with him, Cliff agreed without hesitation, and he helped her get her things together. Let's go back and get your stuff first. Well, technically, I don't know. Maybe she's living with them now. Her stuff would probably be, I'm assuming she's got an apartment now or something like that. They left Shariah with the morning sun, making for Orsted's office. Cliff said that's where the teleportation circle was. As Norn entered the office, she turned to look at the town. Morning was dawning on Shariah. It glowed in the sunlight. She'd seen a similar sight long ago when Reserve brought her there. Then she remembered what Lucy said. Sister Norn, Reserve is yours. Okay, we're flagging it already. I get it. Reserve is yours. Reserve needs a wife. What is Refugin saying here? I get it already. Norn, Reserve is yours. Reserve's gonna have a daughter. I don't know. How old is Norn at this point? She's way too young, but I don't know, maybe 10 years. Norn had managed to do for Lucy what Reserve had done for her back then. Realizing it, Norn's eyes filled with tears. I mean, granted, to that joke, yes, technically, with the idea of Reserve needing to have a wife, and Norn obviously being very doki blushy in the last chapters. And yes, thinking back to that whole element of seeing this prince, this shining prince, and how much she cares for him. I mean, even making jokes back in the day that it felt like Norm was going to have to marry Paul, if anything, because she was so obsessed with Paul. Yeah, it technically all connects here that, yeah, it feels like Refugin at least is hinting at pushing to the idea that Norn gets with Bajerd. Realizing it, Norn's eyes fill with tears. Norn, what are you doing? Let's go. Okay. Going into the office, Norn promised herself that she'd go fishing with Lucy the moment that she got home. If she leaves the superb village. And that is it. That was a very quick chapter. I think it was like 3 pages long. Interlude, Vita, and Raxus. This was actually a very surprise chapter. Now, I kind of pushed the idea that earlier I kind of wanted something like this to kind of get a full sense of what's going on with the plague. Sadly, it doesn't really fully answer the question, but it's fine. I almost like that there's no like concrete answer as the whole how the disease itself worked. But again, I love these types of chapters because it's world building. Like there's no point to this. Like we didn't even need this. Raxus is already dead. There's no point to even having this chapter. We could put 2 to 2 together. Yes, Vita was working for the man god, and Rudius, yes, with the ring took him out. That's all we need to know. But no, Refugin goes, no, let's get into him. Let's tell you about the stickies. Let's tell you about the stickies. World building, I love it. The stickies are once called monsters. In the depths of the forest on the demon continent, there lived a species of slime creatures. They infiltrated fruit and carcasses of animals, then parasitized creatures that ate them, forging a symbiotic bond with the hosts. These creatures were the forerunners of what will one day become the stickies. One day, one of the creatures was captured. The person that caught it did a range of experiments on it. They made it parasitize all kinds of creatures and absorb a variety of substances. The creature achieved sapience. His captor was satisfied by this and released the creature back to the wild. It turned to its herd and shared its sapience with the other creatures. Thus, these formerly mindless parasites grew intelligence. Being smart didn't mean that they were all tough, though. They were recognized as demons because their ability to communicate and enhance the healing and disease resistance of their hosts. Very interesting. That technically does apply to what happened with Vita. When Vita went inside the body of all of them, it seems like it was able to take out that disease, and that would kind of make sense here. It boosts the disease resistance of them, thus the Superb were able to overcome that disease. Still, yeah, I do kind of question here, who was this person that caught one and did a bunch of experiments on it, taught it sapience? Why? Was the man god cooking way back here? The one that immediately came to my mind was Laplace. I wonder if the original Laplace, again, doing all of his research and doing all the things that he does and trying to learn techniques and whatnot, did they get one of these creatures and mess with it to try to figure it out? They greatly aided the demon kings and their upper leadership in the human-demon war, parasitizing their bodies to lend them bountiful intelligence. In celebration of this achievement, one of the creatures was gifted a demon eye by Kishirika and becoming a demon king. Despite these achievements, they produced no heroic features. And I kind of wonder if that was the one that Ruius talked to. No, that would be the one in the library labyrinth, right? He was a demon king. Yeah. I wonder if that was that one. That was a demon eye? Question mark? I forget if that was mentioned as being a demon eye. Huh. That's cool. Despite these achievements, they produced no heroic figures of the sorts that history remembered until the creature called Vita was born. The stickies were parasites. The strongest of them might survive to a degree without a host, but in general, they lived symbiotically with their hosts and died with them. They lent knowledge and advice to the creatures they resided in, but they could not control them as they pleased. Taking over a body wasn't impossible, but it required the owner to spend many years without resistance. Unless the hosts were brain dead, it wasn't possible to usurp the body's rightful owner. Vita was different. He was a blessed child. Very interesting. So now we're getting into the idea of a blessed child, somebody with a being that has born with some kind of special power. And yes, it seems like that power was illusions. Using illusions, he could show his hosts dreams. The dream he showed them could go on and on. He was able to put those hosts in a years-long coma, a state of effective brain death. Vita was the first sticky in history able to control his hosts. Yet he wasn't born with any great ambition. Yeah, and that kind of insinuates there that, yeah, he simply had to put Rudius in that dream state, and he would have been able to control him and do whatever he wanted to him. Which is interesting because technically when Rudius was in that dream state, Rajerd had picked him up and took him back to the house. And it wasn't until Rudius beat Vita that Rajerd collapsed right then. Which does imply that Vita wasn't controlling Rudius. He was just doing illusion magic onto him. Now, it could be that he had to get to him to a certain state where he was technically, comfortable, and he wasn't constantly having to create new dreams for him that Rudius kept breaking. Very interesting, though. He wasn't even aware of his own power. The first time he discovered it was when, young and brimming with curiosity, he left the cave that was his home to go on an adventure and almost died. He encountered his first river, and driven by curiosity, he jumped into it. Vita was almost killed by a river back in the day. The guy that nearly took out Rudius nearly died to a river. Again, Rudius said that he's kind of happy that there's morons on the man-god side of the battlefield. The flow of water broke up his mucus, leaving only his core. The mucus forming the bodies of stickies is a vital organ. Their hands and feet, their mouths, their stomachs, and even their skin that protects them. Being naked core without protection, if consumed, they would die to stomach acid. Unable to move, Vita waited to die. He was washed all the way to the sea, where he found himself in the belly of a fish. As his awareness faded, Vita dreamed. In the dream, he met a god. The god's advice told him his true power and how to restore his mucus from moisture. He used this to send the fish nightmares, causing it to vomit him up before he restored his mucus from the seawater. Then when another fish swallowed him, he took over his mind and body. He made that fish get eaten by a bigger fish, then that fish eaten by a bird, and that bird eaten by a demon king whose body he stole. He did all this on the advice of the man god. The demon king, whom Vita took control of, was extremely powerful, and he fought in the Laplace War. Now, Vita thought that he was almighty. Very interesting. Right here he says, consumed by arrogance, he committed all matters of atrocities. He murdered and he stole, and he delighted in all of it. He hadn't thought destroying things would bring him much joy. Perhaps it was influence of the host's nature. That's very interesting. I wonder if that is an element, because it does technically make sense, because what Vita had to do for Rudius was that, yes, he went into Rudius, and then he had to peer into his imagination and his desires, and he created dreams around that. So it does make sense that he is going to basically touch a little bit on what's going on there. And so, yeah, I can see a lot of the person's memories or desires kind of influencing a little bit, especially since it kind of point out the idea that he had no ambitions himself. And now he goes off and he finds this river, he gets sucked up into it, and then he has to kind of transfer himself to get to this demon king. Now suddenly, hey, I just seen all these desires this guy has, and now suddenly that's influencing me. And I almost kind of wonder if a bit of that sort of rubbed off on him when he took over Rudius. If some of Rudius's desires rubbed off on Vita. And the idea that his desire to help the people, maybe he wanted to help them. It kind of insinuates a little bit later on this idea that he may have helped the situation a little bit to try to undo something. I've always enjoyed the concept of almost memories and desires sort of melding when somebody looks into somebody else's mind. Stuff's super fascinating. Vita's reign of terror was short-lived. Someone came to stop him, and that someone was called Raxus. Raxus was a servant of the tyrannical demon king Vita was possessing. The two had come through the Laplace War together as comrades. His strength was such that he earned the epithet Death God. He had been away on a long journey, but when he returned, he took one look at the tyrannical demon king and asked, "Who are you? What did you do to him?" "That fool of the demon king is dead. I am demon. No, I am abyssal king Vita." Furious, Raxus challenged Vita to a fight. Vita thought it would be an easy victory, but Raxus defeated him before he realized what was happening. Just before his host died, Vita transferred his core to another host and fled. Taking control of a new host gave Vita some respite. His new host wasn't a demon king, but they were still powerful. Besides, possessing a demon king had allowed him to learn about people and their societies. He had ideas how to get him a superior host. He put the past behind him and start fresh. Vita was forgetting something. When he abandoned his hosts, they regained consciousness. The demon king, despite sustaining a near-fatal wound, was no exception. Who knows what Raxus said to the demon king when he regained himself? The demon king must have told Raxus of his humiliation, for Raxus came after Vita. He's like, that's cool. Ditch. Out of here. Peace out. Oh, damn, I forgot. Nope, ain't gonna let you go. I do like that, though. The idea these two were comrades in battle. They fought side by side. They came out victors, and in the end, Raxus takes one look at him and says, "Who the hell are you?" Like, you ain't fooling nobody. Wherever he went, Raxus followed. No matter who he made a host, Raxus saw through it and killed them. It wasn't until much later that Vita learned how Raxus was seen through all of his disguises. He used a magical implement of his own design to detect creatures parasitized by stickies and killed them. He continued, relentless and merciless. He came upon the cave of stickies where Vita was born. He massacred them. Damn, we're doing like a full-on purge of the stickies at this point. And yeah, technically at this point, I'm kind of seeing how Raxus is really good at making things. He literally has a magical implement to find them. Like, he literally uses it to be able to detect when they're at and just, like, I guess stab somebody that has one inside of them. Pretty crazy. And yeah, I kind of wonder about this. And I guess that technically does make sense in the idea that when Raxus comes back, he finds his friend, his comrade, is taken over by these stickies. And they know about these stickies. Again, these are stickies that are being utilized in this whole human-demon war. Again, they're using them to kind of bolster themselves up, buff themselves up. But I think it's because this is a different case where, okay, yeah, these stickies have always been helping us out, but they never took control of us. And now he comes here and he sees this Demon King, his comrade, has been taken over by one, and for a significant amount of time. That's a threat. That right there suddenly turns into a threat. And yeah, I can totally see between the two of them, possibly just Raxus, realizing these guys are a threat, and if they take over us, that's a bad thing. So not only is he going after Vita, he's going over to take out all of them, which is kind of scary. So it does technically make sense why he would make this magical implement to be able to find them. He is doing a full-out purge. At some point, these stickies showed up, and their intelligence, we classify them as demons at that point, and we use them to bolster ourselves in combat. But now we've realized they can take us over. They're a threat. Get rid of all of them. Don't let them exist anymore. Very, very interesting. Kind of sad they don't get more detail about that. Maybe again, since this has popped up, maybe we might actually, again, really cool world building. The Juggernaut struck fear into Vita. He created a monster. Like, damn it. Damn it. Despite his fear, he didn't simply run. He was convinced that killing Raxus was the only way he'd survive, so he plotted. Even Raxus would be rendered helpless if Vita could get inside him and cast his illusions. Confident of his plan, he schemed to parasitize a friend Raxus had already used the magical implement on. He'd use it to get close to Raxus, then transfer himself to him. That plan never came to fruition. Raxus's friend was in possession of a certain magical implement, the Bone Ring. So that's how he learned how it works. The answer to my question before is like, how does he know about this? Like, not the ring that Raxus made. The one that makes you see somebody that you trust the most in order to overcome my illusions and thus kill me. Yeah, it seems like his friend already had it, so he knew exactly what it would do. But no, I'm assuming this person is Randolph. This friend of Raxus, the only person I can think of is this Randolph. It was a ring Raxus crafted from bones of his friend, the tyrannical Demon King, for the sole purpose of killing Vita. Vita nearly died. Fortunately for him, the friend was more lenient than Raxus. So I have to do his voice. Raxus will kill me, but I was so happy seeing her again after all this time. Thank you. If this is Randolph, did he ever allude to a beloved wife? I think he did at some point talk about a wife. I don't know. Oh my gosh, his stuff is so scattered, it's kind of hard to remember. I think he talked at some point about somebody, a beloved. Interesting. Very interesting. Again, the assumption here is because, again, Randolph trained under the Death God, was close to him. And the assumption here is that he would be the best way to get to Raxus. He possesses Randolph, and at some point, he sees, obviously, again, the one that he would trust the most, the one that this ring would manifest. He was able to see that person again and then allowed him to live because he showed him a good illusion. And I almost think that Rudius would have done the same thing. I really do feel like there's a side of me, because again, Rudius didn't want to kill him. Like afterwards, he's literally going, crap, he took himself out. I didn't mean to do anything. Again, what did Paul keep talking about? Go find the core. And that thing that was off in this world was Zenith. He took the form of Zenith in order to protect himself. So when Rudius shot Zenith, he shot the core. And that's what I think killed him. It wasn't the ring, it was killing the core. So this does make me kind of wonder if right here, did Randolph somehow get out of it without having to kill that beloved person? Because in the end, Vita lived. I don't know. I'm very curious. Or maybe possibly the ring itself did not fully activate. Like it didn't stay in him long enough. That all is possible. Because again, it does say Vita nearly died, but this person let him live. Vita took a nearby dog as a host, then left, nursing his failure. He decided he would flee. While possessing Vita's friend? While possessing Vita's friend? I haven't brought one up in a while, so let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah. While possessing Vita's friend. What the hell, 7Cs? Yeah. While possessing Vita's friend, he learned just how fervently Raxus was. Okay, 7Cs. I'm not sure how you can get that one wrong, an entire name wrong. While possessing Raxus's friend, he learned how fervently he was pursuing him. Vita was convinced that Raxus would kill him, and he didn't have a plan that could stop him. He fled to the place the man god's hints led him. He shed the dog for a wyvern, then left the demon continent for divine continent, heading for the hell labyrinth. It was an inhospitable spot, the kind of place where, no matter who you were, you didn't come out once you entered. But Vita was a sticky. None of that mattered to him. Inside the labyrinth, he went from one host to another until he parasitized the guardian of the labyrinth. Yeah, that was kind of the interesting thing to note there. The idea that he wasn't the guardian, he was the guardian. The assumption here was that whenever they talked about hell and Vita, it was just that there was this Vita that was at the core of it. The assumption that there's this beast down there that is called Vita, but no, it was literally, to anybody else, it was the guardian. It was the guardian of the labyrinth that had Vita inside of it. At last, he found some safety. A multitude of traps lay in wait within the hell labyrinth of the divine continent. It wasn't the sort of place you would simply walk into. Even the death god Raxus couldn't make it all the way to the center. And Vita, terrified of Raxus, never planned on leaving. He could outwait Raxus. After he made it to the Guardian and took over its body, he let time slip away. Vita had all the time he wanted to look back and reflect on his life. The man god told Vita that all the stickies, apart from him and one other, had been killed. Laughing as he did so. Just like all of them. Every single one of them. Ha ha, I took everything from you. Ha ha ha, butt wiggle. And then they still help him. Now, technically right here, yeah, even the man god's putting, it's all your fault. It's all your fault the stickies all died. The man god sneered and snickered. Vita didn't have any attachment to his own kind, but he was ashamed of his own foolishness that brought about their demise. And right there, it's similar to... It's sort of similar to Geese's situation, where it's like he wasn't a big fan of them. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, not my mother. Oh, I loved my mother so much. It's just simply like, yeah, they're my own kind, and it's my actions that kill them. Again, with Geese, he wanted to get the hell out of there, but he still felt bad that that's something that caused that devastation. He didn't have attachment, but at the same time, those are my people. It was my actions that did it. But it really does kind of put this whole situation here not as if the man god did it. It was my own actions, my foolishness, and the man god's putting it as you were at fault. Not so much the man god tricked him, not so much the man god deceived him and caused him to kill his own kind, but simply that he laughed at him for causing it. Interesting. The old Vito would never have thought that way. Perhaps it was thanks to the thoughtful nature of the monster that guarded the labyrinth. Again, insinuating the idea that almost getting his own personality and way of thinking from what he actually is inside of. Very interesting. Whatever it was, Vita reflected on what the man god said and made up his mind to spend the rest of eternity in the labyrinth. That resolution lasted until the man god called on him again. Hey, sorry for laughing at you the other day. Very interesting, the other day. Like, is there like a sense of like time span here? Yeah, the other day, when that happened. Sorry. A couple hundred years ago. Vita wasn't bothered. On the contrary, he was happy to see the man god who'd saved him twice. Again, yeah, I'm not bothered. Yeah, he laughed at me for my own foolish actions, but again, he's taking accountability for his actions. This is definitely a different situation than Geese and Bodigatti, where in those cases, he's like, literally, this has just happened, and yeah, there's a sense that he was at fault. Now, this could technically be a difference in how smart Geese is and Bodigatti compared to Vita, because it doesn't really put Vita as being this smart genius thing. And that a lot of what he had to learn was through what the man god was telling him to do. He did not achieve gaining that Demon King's body without the help of the man god. He had no ambitions. He was stupid enough to jump into a river. So yeah, for Vita, it's simply, yeah, you laughed at me, but I'm not really bothered by that. It was my own fault. And he saved me twice, so yeah, of course he's going to help him out. The truth is, I'm in a bit of a pickle, and I was hoping you would help me out. Vita hesitated at this. The man god had helped him, and and now he was asking for help. Vita knew it was only right that he would agree, but he feared Raxus. Raxus is already dead. You'll be fine. There's a confirmation there. It's sort of, again, if he's telling the truth here. Because again, I think at some point Randolph mentioned the fact that, or the assumption was that Raxus died. And right here, at least what the man god's saying, yeah, Raxus is already dead. Question mark, how? The man god went on to tell Vita how humiliating and ugly the death god's end was. Vita wasn't concerned about how bad it was. Just knowing Raxus was dead reassured him. He was like, I don't care about how. I don't have to be afraid of him anymore. He decided to help the man god. Problem was, he was the guardian of the labyrinth, so he couldn't leave the boss room. And even if the guardian, who had hosted him this time, were to die, Vita couldn't go anywhere by himself. Very interesting there, that confirming the idea that the guardian itself can't leave the room. They're not physically able to. Like, they're tied there to some way. Very interesting. I wonder if that's an aspect that if they leave the core, it's like they're linked to the core itself. So like snapping that rope, literally just they collapse. Like it's like their energy source. Or is it simply because the room itself is maybe they can't use if there's a teleportation circle, could possibly not be a teleportation circle situation. They couldn't leave through that teleportation circle. Very, very curious, which is kind of thankful because yeah, something like the Hydra having left that teleportation labyrinth and attacking a nearby city would be devastating. But again, why would they leave? It seems like they're all drawn to that mana that's flowing through there. Like they want it. Don't worry. I've called someone to come get you. He's handling the plan for me. So make sure to listen to him, okay? He then vanished. Before long, a demon called Geese showed up. Vita could scarcely believe that he made it into the bowels of the labyrinth. But when he saw the demon was riding a strangely familiar Demon King, he accepted it. I wonder who that Demon King was. The Demon King Body Gotti. I could see that walking in there. Bah! And he's got Geese sitting on one of his arms. Dang. That's a huge question mark. Again, he kind of mentions earlier that this place is full of like crazy traps. And so I can assume that's probably a big threat in the place itself. And again, the only reason that Vita was able to make it all the way down to the Guardian himself is because he was possessing each and every one of the beasts, getting all the way down to the core. But they've always kind of pointed out the idea that Hell was like one of the strongest labyrinths out there. But there was a curiosity that I had if that was mainly because Vita was down there. But the fact that he is technically possessing the Guardian technically means that Vita isn't the threat that Hell Labyrinth had. It was everything in it, in the traps. Very interesting. Vita put the Guardian to sleep, then made him spit him out, and climbed the bottle Geese brought. You're Vita? Nice to meet you. Whoops. Can you hear me okay in there? Geese explained the outline of the plan along the way. They would go to the superb village, seize absolute control over the villagers, then lie in wait for a man called Rudius. Rudius would undoubtedly try to cure the plague, but they would use that to buy time. Just when Geese and his allies were about to invade, Vita would shift to Rudius and incapacitate him. That was it. Geese said one last thing, though. He came out with it suddenly, like Vita wasn't there. This plague, though, I don't know. Old Reserve saved my life back in the day. Coming back from the battle and finding all of his people dead. It's all a bit much to bear. Vita thought about the Stickies, all dead because of him. He wasn't attached to them, but he remembered how he regretted them dying out. As he reflected, he decided that if he could ensure the plan succeeded while still curing the Superb, he'd do it. Little did Vita know that Raxus' obsession would be the death of him. Very interesting. Okay, let's go back. There's a lot in this like last little segment here that I want to dig into. So yeah, Geese comes there, puts him inside the bottle, goes to leave, and then talks about their plan. And right here, technically the fact that he's there with what assumed is Body Gotti. I can't think of him probably having allied Demon King before then. That has been mentioned so far. But the fact that they're going to the Superb village and their plan is to, do something to Rudius, this puts it in line with right now. Not way back in the past. This is something that has happened here in the last 2 years. That yes, Geese went to the Hell Labyrinth with Body Gotti, got Vita, then went back to the Superb village to infect them with Vita. So this does confirm that Vita hasn't been there for a long time. Because the story that Orsted was giving was that yes, the Superb tribe died a long time ago from an illness. This is insinuating that something else happened back in the day that actually cured them. That something else took out that illness. Now, granted, it could be the same illness that was taking out them every single loop. It's just in this particular loop, it has been put off for some reason. Something changed that delayed that illness from hitting. But right here, yes, they're saying that there was a plague. Vita was not causing it. This was not caused by Vita. Vita is saying right here, I'd like to cure them. I'd like to cure them of that disease. The only reason that Vita was planted in that village was to get to Rudius. That Rudius is going to come there and try to cure that plague, and that will be your moment. Vita will then attack Rudius and incapacitate him so that everybody else can rush in and take him out. It so happened that at the same time, Vita thought, I remember when my family was taken out. I like to help him. I'm going to get rid of that disease. And it's so funny that it almost implies this idea from Rudius' side and whatnot that Vita was taking one last effort to get him again. But no, he actually tried to get rid of it all. It's just, yes, his body was left behind and they had to get rid of that to get it completely out of them. That's the problem. Like, even though Vita took out the illness, which we're finally confirming here, they still had to get, kicked out. Like, they still had to get broken down and sent out of the body. His body had to be expelled somehow. So in the end, what Cliff did save them from that after effect of Vita being in them. It's very interesting. I like that idea that, yes, even right here, Geese is even mentioning the idea that, yeah, it kind of sucks that he's going to do all this for us. Reserve's going to help us and everything. And then he's going to go back to his family and they're all going to be dead. And again, that kind of confirms what I was speculating before. Why is Reserve helping him now, knowing what Rudius has told him? Because what's going to happen is Reserve's going to kill Rudius, and then he's going to go back home, and there's no reason for Vita to stay around. They're going to die anyways. So there's no point in helping him kill yet another person. You're essentially killing one extra person, and you're losing everything anyways. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks, the idea to choose to, let your people die and not do what they say, but you're going to lose them anyways. That's the unfortunate thing. You're going to lose them anyways. Now, he doesn't know that for sure. I'm totally armchair quarterbacking right now. But cool to see that Vita was actually getting rid of it. He actually got rid of it because he didn't want somebody else to suffer what he suffered. And so this does technically answer all the questions that I have about this disease, which again, I didn't really want it. And I was kind of mentioning last Mushoku Monday, I kind of like that it's so, like, they don't know. Like, Rudius doesn't actually know. Orsid doesn't 100% know. And Cliff doesn't 100% know. There was a disease. Vita was brought here very recently and got rid of the disease. That thus implies that the disease by something else was delaying it. And it could be the man god. The man god could have put something into play to delay this disease somehow, which doesn't make sense to me because he would want to get rid of them earlier, unless he purposely wanted to delay the disease until Reserve got there. So this would be a way to get rid of Reserve as well. But Vita himself got rid of the disease. He was then killed, and then Cliff put something into play in order to expel them, which is cool. So the only question we have left is, what delayed it? Cool, though. Good to see that Geese has some kind of heart in there somewhere. Reserve saved his butt. He kind of doesn't like the idea of doing this. Kind of sucks. Anywho, Chapter 8, The Capital. This is a sort of interesting chapter. Not a really deep chapter, but we'll see. Sometimes I find stuff in here that I missed the first time through. Reserve and Rudius sat quietly in a room, shimmering pot between them on the hearth. They didn't speak. There was only silence. They didn't need to speak. Or maybe it was more accurate to say they didn't have the luxury. Right now, Rudius was solely focused on the hearth. He couldn't screw this up. When the moment came, he reached out slowly, extinguished the fire, but it wasn't over. Reserve, have you prepared yourself? I'm ready. With that, Rudius took another object from his side, perfectly white and shaped like an egg. Well, it was actually a chicken's egg. Without a word, he cracked it into the bowl, whisked it, just as he had done many times before. It was like riding a bicycle. You never forget. Though he never practiced it. It was possibly something he was born with. Pure instinct. The egg white and yolk combined. He repeated it once more with another bowl. He set them to his side, lifted the pot lid, looked inside, and nodded. White grains were cooked through. He resisted the urge of shoveling it into his mouth. He then heaped rice into a bowl, made a well with chopsticks, poured the egg into it, and finally poured on some liquid that was so black it could be mistaken for poison. Soy sauce. He finally gets a chance to really put it to use. The color it produced made his stomach growl. He had to keep himself calm. He'd be able to eat it soon. Yeah, I wonder how quickly he's going to go home and have Nanahoshi try it. That would be a good reason to wake up Nanahoshi. Nanahoshi, you gotta wake up. What happened, Rudius? Did something change? You said that you'd wake me up if anything changed. What happened? What happened? Did he show up? No, I found soy sauce. Remember we talked about before? The soy sauce, we found it. From now on, he could eat this whenever he felt like it. He was going to make every moment of this first time special. It is ready. Announcing at last, he passed the bowl to Richard. He accepted it before waiting for Rudius to prepare his own bowl. Thank you for this food. Rudius brought his hands together, bowed his head, then crammed in a heaping mouthful. The taste was perfect. There was room for improvement, but this was it. The flavor he'd been pursuing all this time. He ate one mouthful, then another, and another. No talking, just eating, chewing, swallowing, breathing. After the bowl was empty, his moment of bliss was over in a blink of an eye. He was satisfied, but also wanting more. But before he could, he looked at Bergerd, who was still eating in silence. He was never the type to chat during meals, but seemed even more taciturn than usual. Of course, he and Rudius were the only ones there, so Rudius couldn't expect a conversation when he wasn't talking either. Rudius? Rudius was shocked when he realized Norn was actually there. How could you forget that Norn's in the room? Is she so normal that you just forget about poor Norn? So mean. Norn, when'd you get here? Only just now. I did say something when you were eating, though. What is that? A special dish. Want some? Norn glanced at Richard before answering. I suppose. Reese crafted a bowl for her and then handed it over. Eat up. What even is this? The food of my people. The food of my people. You will have some food of my people. She hesitated for a long moment, then took it with thanks and started eating. Rudius wanted them to finish. They took so long, and he wanted to know what they thought. Richard spoke up after finally finishing. Is this the food you told me about during our travels? Yeah. What do you think? It was good. That was all he had to say, but it was more than enough for Rudius. In the good old days, when they traveled together, this is what Rudius hankered after. Now he was eating together with his old traveling companion. The only regret was that Edis wasn't there with them. Yeah, that's a bummer thing there. And again, this is one of those moments where I kind of wonder if they're... I really do think like that whole chapter where Rudius and Edis had rice when they were in the King Dragon realm, I think that was like something he made later and completely forgot when they got to this point. Because again, when they were in the floating fortress, Rudius was like, wait, there's rice here? And it's like, dude, you had rice when you were down there. And here is again, like, now you can excuse this moment right here because he's adding soy sauce. And so soy sauce is the new thing. But yes, way back there when they were traveling, he got to have his rice with egg on it. He just didn't have, yes, the soy sauce. And yes, technically back there, he just ate it with Edis, and Richard wasn't there. I think he showed up later. I think they'd finished. I don't remember. I want to say that Richard showed up there, but they didn't have enough for him or something like that. Anyways, thanks for that. Let's hear it then, Norn. This is what I told you about back home. It was actually quite good. This flavor, it's not like anything I've had before. Is it that seasoning? That's right. Soy sauce is incredible. You can put it in anything, and it'll taste great. Nope. Nope. Not my opinion. Nope. It's a very salty thing, but yeah, about the only thing I use soy sauce on is like, shoot, some meats that I'll put some soy sauce on it to give it a flavoring along with some other stuff. But no, I'm not a big fan of soy sauce in that way. Like I've had soy sauce on a lot of rice and whatnot, but not really anything else. I kind of curious how it would work with like actual cooked egg though. I mean, this is obviously raw egg cooked on there, but it obviously does kind of heat up quite a bit. But still, I don't do raw egg. That just, yeah, and technically can make you sick if it's not a fresh egg. Wow. It got rave reviews from Norn as well. Reese would make it again for her at home. Today was a historical day. It marked the birth of Tamago Kake Gohan in this world. The only thing is, eating a raw egg can make you sick. I'll cast detoxification magic on you once you're done. You can't feed something that needs detoxification to a person that's still recovering. On this historical day, Rudius earned a scolding. Why the hell would you give that to Richard then? 2 days passed, the Superb steadily moved towards recovery. Many were still bedridden, but those with mild symptoms were back to their normal lives. With that, Rudius built a dark room in the corner of the village and planted Sokas grass. They still didn't know whether the plague was a result of the soil or the Abyssal King Vita, but if they ever came down with the same symptoms, having this would make all the difference. If the Abyssal King Vita caused the plague, Rudius supposed he was gone, and there was no chance for it to recur. If it was the vegetables, the Superb would have to change their lifestyles, either by moving closer to the edge of the forest or by going to the Earthworm Ravine village for their produce. It just dawned on me while I was reading this segment here. I wonder if that's the reason that the Immortal Demon King, because didn't they mention the idea that the Immortal Demon Kings all have this planted under their castles? And I think they implied the idea that the Immortal Demon Kings drink this tea. I wonder if there's a connection there. Now, again, we've sort of, for the most part, kind of, pushed aside the theory that this is Drine Syndrome. But there is a side of me that almost wonders if that's an aspect of the Immortal Demon Kings and why they all have this Sokas grass. Is there something that they put into effect a long time ago and they forgot at this point that the Immortal Demon Kings should partake in Sokas grass on a regular basis because their long life they will develop so much mana or accumulate so much mana and not get rid of enough of it that they do drink the Sokos grass on a regular basis to get rid of some of that mana. I wonder about that. That's a total, again, assuming this has anything to do with the fact of how the Superb die eventually, the disease they're getting. I wonder if it's connected. That would be very interesting. Total side thing here. I don't really think it's the case, but it is kind of curious. Whichever it was, they needed a blessing of the Beharel Kingdom. Moving them to the Asura Kingdom was an option, but many of the Superbs were uneasy or outright opposed to the idea. They lived in this land for a long time. They were loath to leave it. Not to mention the Mill's faith had great influence in the kingdom of Asura. The Superb might have eased up around Cliff, but their fear of the Mill's church ran deep. Yeah, I don't see it fixing that quickly. Again, it's Cliff. It's Cliff, not the Mill's church. And so Rudius set off to the capital city of Beharel Kingdom to negotiate with them. He had two objectives: acceptance of the Superb and dissolution of the hunting party. The Superb were generally blunt in their interactions, and they faced ongoing persecution, so they were a little insular. They were good-hearted people, though. Even if the Beharel Kingdom had reservations, Rudius had ways to persuade them. It doesn't seem like you do for him. He does. I mean, he pulls it off, but yeah, he doesn't. He's not really that confident once he gets there. The quickest would to have someone come to the village. Once they saw the innocent children, they'd know they were harmless. At least that's what Rudius hoped. The Beharel Kingdom's inspectors might see the children and fear them breeding, wanting to exterminate them like cockroaches. Rudius would encourage the tribe to move. Settling them in the north of the Asura Kingdom meant putting another burden on Ariel. If all else failed, Rudius would pay her with his body. He can't stop thinking about that dream. He can't stop thinking about that dream. Still, the Superb children were sweet and beautiful. Rudius didn't want to believe the Beharel Kingdom was full of jerks who couldn't be moved by the sight of children playing. So I'm going to Beharel Kingdom. I see. Cliff said that he's going to keep an eye on how things progress, and Elendelace will stay with him. I think Norn's going to keep caring for Richard. What are you going to do, Sir Orsted? I will remain here. Cliff Glamoire is researching the plague. Next time, I may be able to cure it. At least right there, they're showing signs that, yes, they have confirmed that we haven't completely figured this out. Like, we still need to look into this. And yeah, it does make sense that Orsted is going to want to know what that is. Because again, if he fails this loop, he's going to want it for next time. He's going to need that for next time. Very interesting. A ball went flying at Orsted as he spoke, and he whacked it away. It happened in a flash. Rudius barely seen his hand move. The ball flew back with a gentle arc right into the arms of a child. My presence shouldn't be required for negotiations. No argument there. Even with the helmet holding the curse at bay, another ball came flying, and whack, back it went again. That doesn't mean it's gone altogether, does it? Indeed. Whack, back went another ball. Should it come down to it, though, I'd appreciate you making an appearance. Even with the curse, the sight of you should strike on to them. Very well. Whack, again. Should I make them cut it out? Do you want me to stop them? There was a group of Superb children hurling ball after ball at Orsted. They didn't look hostile, so much as curious. Who's this weird guy? Let's hit him with a ball, something like that. Without the helmet, they would all be hurling stones instead. It's of no concern. Such trifling shots don't count as an attack. You don't say. Rudius wondered if Orsted was playing. There was no telling what his face was doing underneath that helmet, but he didn't sound grumpy. Are you enjoying this? It's not so bad. Great. I'll be back soon. Orsted grunted his approval and left. I'm gonna love this. And this has got to be in the anime. I don't see why this would not be in the anime. I mean, it's a whole after scene of this big, massive story beat right here. But just like, he just standing there all grumpy looking with his helmet on, and it just every now and then just like, is that he like literally his hand moves so fast that he can't see it. Just swat. The kids are probably wondering like, wow, every time we throw the ball at him, it just comes back. Like, how does that work? Ooh, that's weird. It's super cute. It's not so bad. He's like, it's just perfectly fine. It's not so bad. I'm fine. It's not bad. It's great. Orsted grunted his approval and left. Doga and Shandel were already waiting for Rudius at the teleportation circle. While he was in the capital, Shandel was going to the second city to contact the informant. It wasn't how they planned it, but they decided splitting into two groups was more efficient. Doga was coming with Rudius for protection. At this stage, Rudius didn't see him be much help. He supposed it was better having him there than not. Still waiting for Doga's big moment too. On the way, Rudius passed Richard. He was shaking on his feet, leaning on Norn's shoulder for support. Damn, there's another sign that this wrecked Richard bad. Richard, you can walk? Short distances. Judging by Norn's stern face, he wasn't supposed to. I'm going to Beharel Kingdom for a little while to negotiate with them. When I come back, I might have some soldiers with me. If it could be as warm as possible, that would be a great help. Very well. I'll let the chief know. Richard answered, looking at Orsted. Orsted was backed up against a wall, with children throwing ball after ball. You'd think that they were bullying him, but there was something charming about it. Orsted deflected each ball with precision. The children laughing. Those could be deceiving. They sure can. The corners of Rudius's mouth quirked into a smile. I like it. It's like freaking Orsted becoming like a ball court right here. Kids playing ball with Orsted. Rudius passed through the magical circle at Orsted's office, then to Burhill Kingdom. Naturally, when he stopped off at the office, he checked the communication tablets. Zenoba, Aisha, and the mercenary band reported all as well. There was nothing from Sylphie, but that was all right. She was pretty far away and wasn't supposed to be close to the nearest teleportation circle. Roxy made some progress. She didn't know where the Ogre God was, but rumors were circulating that the Ogres were readying for battle over on Ogre Island. That's not good. That's not good. She said that Edis was itching to return to Rudius. She wanted to see Rajerd. Oh, it hurts. For Edis, she wants to see again, that's her master. That was her second master. Oh, that hurts. That breaks my heart. But no, that's ominous right there. She's hearing rumors that the ogres are ready for battle. That gives me the indication that the man gods already... Now, it could be that the ogres are currently preparing for battle against maybe the sea folk again or something like that, or the sea tribe. But that makes me believe that I think the man gods already contacted them, or probably Geese or somebody contacted him. Shoot. I forgot. I don't know why. They really like Bodygotti. Yeah, Bodygotti got to them. I mean, that makes sense because they probably went through there in order to go to, or they were around the area when they went to Hell. So they went to Hell, got Vita, dropped by there at some point, talked to the Ogre God, said, hey, join us. I could see that because they, again, when Bodygotti first came there, he like just decimated him over and over again, and they became friends, and he was training them how to fight and stuff. I could totally see him right there making that bond that he can go back there and say, hey, join me, Mary. Let's go battle. Shoot. That kind of sucks. Which does, yes, add to my fears about Roxy going there. Damn it. Freaking Edis is going to have to, like, decimate the entire freaking tribe. Edis is going to go in there and decimate the entire tribe. Rudius also sent out a message to everyone to let them know the Superb were on the way to recovery. It had all resolved so quickly that Rudius felt bad for causing such an uproar. Everything completed, Rudius put on his disguise ring and hopped on a teleportation circle that led him to the capital of Burhill Kingdom. Zenoba had set up a circle on the other side in an abandoned village in the forest, half a day's journey from the city. Now, this kind of brings up the massive question mark here, because again, way back when they were first talking about sending everybody to all these locations and setting up stuff, the assumption there was that they were going to go to these locations and set down a scroll that was pre-made, and that was going to serve as a teleportation circle. But again, yes, that does technically expand out of the first time use, but the assumption there was that Rudius would teleport to those locations and put down an actual proper teleportation circle. But after what we've seen with what Rudius had to go through in order to set one up in outside of the Superb village, that makes me wonder so Zenoba knows too? Like Zenoba's like fully, like all of them have been fully trained on how to make them. Makes sense for Roxy. She's done it before. She's made circles before. But Zenoba? Is Zenoba that? I mean, I guess it makes sense. He's been making circles for a while now too. He's been working with them to make all this stuff, the armor and whatnot. So he's probably well trained in it. I guess they haven't really insinuated that Aisha or Sylphie is going to create one. So I guess it all makes sense. That Zenoba probably does know how to make these teleportation circles too at this point. But interesting confirmation there. He set up an abandoned village in the forest, half day's journey from the city. The moment Rudius arrived, Zenoba greeted him with a bow. Ginger and Julie nearby.
I've been expecting you, Master.
You're waiting for me?
Indeed. I came at once when I received word you were coming. This is perfect. Now I can tell you what has been happening without worry about eavesdroppers.
True that. All right, let's hear it.
I must admit, we haven't had much success.
After arriving at the capital and securing lodgings, Zenoba set up a circle in the forest. Then he started collecting information in the capital. That was where he learned the kingdom was putting together a hunting party. He sent his initial report via the contact tablet. After that, he went searching for news of Geese and doing reconnaissance to ID the North God. So we know nothing.
My sincerest apologies. I heard the North God Kalman III was a conspicuous man, so I thought we'd find him straight away. But it hasn't been that simple.
No, don't apologize. They had only been in the Burhill Kingdom for a week, so it was too soon to demand results. We're just getting started. Let's do this thing.
All right.
The North God joining the hunting party was interesting. Pause. When have they ever insinuated that he was joining the hunting party? Question mark? Again, the only reason they know the North God is there is because Kishika noted that it was there. But nothing is insinuated that he has joined the hunting party. That's question mark. I mean, it could be assumed that being who he is, he might be drawn to this big hunting group that's being put together. If that were true, Ruius would love to get in touch with him. Only a guy that conspicuous and nowhere to be found, that made Ruius suspect that he was up to something. Maybe Geese had already recruited him. When Vita failed, Geese probably decided the plan had failed. He had lost his advantage and retreated with the North God in tow. Or Vita might have been a diversion. He had gone down easily. Again, the whole point was for him to incapacitate him. It could have been a stall, but I don't see them doing that just to stall him for a brief moment. Because this is like not even a day. The news about Vita might not have gotten back to Geese yet, but that was probably overly optimistic. Either way, Ruius still got reserved to his side. That was enough to make coming here worth it. Yeah, and helping him with that situation, and again, him being vital to the future of this fight against Laplace is huge.
Well then, Master, shall we be off? I'll take you to the capital.
Yes, please. What Ruius had to do hadn't changed. With that, they set off to the capital. Upon seeing it, it reminded Ruius of Sharon Kingdom. It had the ambience of a mid-sized nation on the central continent. This country had timber in abundance, and almost all the buildings were made of wood. Trees dotted the city. Maybe they were what provided its unique atmosphere. It was night when they arrived, which also gave a cozy, yet grand feeling. In this country, they lit braziers in the street when it got dark. Otherwise, nothing set it apart from any other town. They passed inns and hawkers near the entrance. As they approached the town center, it steadily grew more extravagant. Merchant houses gave way to noble mansions. Right in the middle, there was a castle. It was built at the meeting point of two rivers, similar to Fort Caron and Sharon. Behind the castle, on the other side of the river, there was slums, just as there were in any other town. Right, we have to see the king.
Do you think we can get an audience? The authority of Her Majesty King Ariel doesn't extend to places like this.
Zenobia and Ruius strategized in a room at the inn. This wasn't the kind of place adventurers stayed. It was a swanky establishment that catered to nobles visiting from provincial cities. Honestly, Ruius considered reprimanding Zenobia for doing something that could draw attention. Not that it was so conspicuous that it would wreck anything.
Only the best for my master.
That's what he does say.
What about slipping in with a hunting party? There'll be a departure ceremony where the king will make an address. You could force your way close to him. Then you'll definitely get your audience.
That'd be too late. If we try to call a timeout, when the kingdom's got everything ready to go, they might plow ahead anyway. That was an order to these kind of missions. If you put a party together, you gathered all the resources together and left. If someone showed up at the last minute to stop it, there was a good chance it was impossible. The kingdom's reputation would be tied up in pulling the project off. I can totally see that and being a reputation thing, especially if you get some really kind of powerful warriors or whatnot pulled in this situation. It might actually look bad upon you. It's essentially kind of calling all these people to, and technically, yes, if you still pay them, I think it'd be fine. But again, the whole point here is the reward goes to the victor. And so they're not actually planning on paying all these individuals. So yeah, it would look really bad. It might be too late now, but I want to explain to him why there's no need to attack the Superd. Ruius would explain the existence of the Superd tribe, get their safety guaranteed, and then the hunting party can catch some invisible wolves, or whatever, and come home. And Ruius could even cover some of the money that was wasted on it. Orsa would fork over a decent amount if they asked. True? That was why Ruius wanted to meet the king as soon as possible, before the party set off. Let's try going directly there first. It might draw unwanted attention, but I'll introduce myself as a follower of the Dragon God, then name drop Osra Kingdom, and, if the situation calls for it, Petagus. If that doesn't work, we can think of something else. No other ideas came to Ruius. They decided to ask for an audience, like everyone else. The next day, after breakfast, they set off for an area around the castle. It really did look like the one in Sharon. From the size to the vibe, the main difference was the number of wooden parts used in the castle. That meant that it was vulnerable to fire, not unlike Zenobia. Stop flagging it. And I feel like it almost feels like Refugion's bringing it up again right here to remind us for later. He's going to get attacked by fire. Just so you think we didn't pull this out of nowhere, let me remind you. I do kind of wonder why he's putting such emphasis on how much this place looks like Sharon. Because again, in between here, you have several kingdoms. And to have this one, which is, yes, here recently actually created, makes me kind of wonder if somebody from Sharon had moved up there. Maybe somebody exiled from Sharon or something like that. Maybe a prince or somebody, a second prince, that decided to come up here and build a nation. We'll probably get turned away at the door.
I'm sure Queen Ariel's name will at least give us a meeting.
The Astral Kingdom doesn't have much diplomatic ties to this country. It'll be tricky if we follow proper procedures.
You're not going to follow proper procedures?
I can't follow them. It was unexpectedly difficult to get a meeting with the king. Ruius always skipped these steps to get royal audiences in the past. Usually, you leverage connections with nobility to get an appointment, get outfitted, a carriage, and handed over documents to prove who you were. Then you were sent to the palace official, who made sure that you were trustworthy. After that, they officially put you in the king's schedule, and then you would go to the audience chamber. It was a tall order if you didn't have connections. That didn't mean it was impossible. If you were important enough the king wanted to see you, even an applicant showing up out of the blue could get in. The only problem was that Geese would find them if they drew too much attention. That limited their options, but Ruius could also assume he got identified ages ago, seeing as he took out Vita. I mean, it's good to be cautious there, but at the same time, it seems like too much of an assumption there. Like, I've been found anyways, might as well do this. Then you're putting yourself at an unwanted risk. Okay, Zenoba, it'll be no good if we go around together. People are bound to start talking. Doga and I will take things from here.
May fortune smile on you in battle.
They parted ways on the busy street, and Doga and Rudius went to the guardhouse near the canal. It actually looked more like a reception desk. The man at the desk had a magnificent handlebar mustache. He wore official-looking tunic, so he probably wasn't a soldier. Rudius wanted to compliment his whiskers, but resisted. Excuse me, may I have a moment? State your business. Well, you see, I was hoping to request an audience with His Majesty, the King. When? Huh? I suppose today. As soon as possible, if it's all right. Rudius felt this process was super sketchy for him to do. But he had nothing to lose. He had to accept that he would draw attention. The man glanced at Rudius, then rifled through his stack of papers. 1 gold. Sorry? For the audience. It's 1 gold. Here you go. To be sure, this is Ashra money, isn't it? Yes. As it happens, this is who I am. Rudius flashed the insignia Ariel sent him. The man said nothing. That wasn't ideal. He was looking for Rudius suspiciously now. The authority of Ashra Kingdom really didn't extend to these parts, just as Zenova said. This looked bad. But then the man put the coin in his pocket and handed Rudius a sheet. Fill out your name and purpose for your audience. Okay. Return here at the noon bell times. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, when this whole thing happened, it was like super sketch. Like when all this was going down, it felt super sketch. I was like, this guy totally gonna, because again, Austrian gold coin, like even before he mentions it later on, I was already picking up on that. Dude, Austrian gold coin is a lot. Like it's worth a lot. I didn't really know that it was going to be an exchange of 10 times that he mentions later on, but I almost thought this guy was like literally like, yeah, sure, I'll fit you in. Just slips it right in his pocket. But he probably did an exchange and pocketed the rest of it. I bet he probably exchanged that for the value and probably paid off whoever was on the list and then pocketed the rest himself. He might have given a little bit of it to whoever was supposed to go in there. But no, I was like, okay, this is seeming way too easy. Before he actually explains why, which actually is pretty cool, I felt it was super sketchy. Like, that was way too easy. Despite the poor reaction, it looked like the tip worked. He was passing on the request. Money had gotten them past the first hurdle. Noon came, and Rudius stood in the waiting room in the audience chamber. He was nervous. He'd come to a palace thinking there was no chance for an audience today, but Whiskers from the reception desk had passed him over to the official to bring him here. It was like he cleared level 1, only to arrive at the final boss. It was all happening too fast. Yeah, again, it felt very convenient. As his mind went blank, he tried to pull himself together. The others waiting in the audience chamber had told him some things. In this kingdom, the king would give audiences to anyone for 2 hours after noon. There was some conditions on the anyone, of course. First, if you want an audience, you had to pay 1 Beharel gold coin. The gold coin was just about what a village could scrape together if everyone chipped in. Each person got 15 minutes. Only 8 people could go per day. Anyone who could pay could get an audience with the king, offer views, ask questions, and make requests. It was a policy in this country to let anyone who had any problems come in and make their petition. That's super cool. Again, I really like that aspect of, yes, there is a limit there that only people with a gold coin can do it, but it is just enough, seemingly, for at least a village to be able to come together and give their grievances. If there's something happening with a nearby village, you know, there's a competition that's happening, there's something attacking the village, they can all scrape that together and get in there. But you can't have it be too cheap because the king doesn't have that much time. Like, there would be too many people coming in there. And yes, like you would have, yeah, just homeless people walking in there just to be able to chill in the waiting room for a little bit and hang out in there, maybe get some tea and some bread or something like that while they're waiting. It still has a limit there, which does suck, but at least it does kind of open itself to the general public to be able to come in there if they have issues. Now, granted, it can go one ear out the other. Yeah, what do you got? What are you here for? Yeah, there's this bad problem with these wolves coming in and attacking our village. Okay, yeah. Anything else? And he could do nothing about it. It allows the king himself to be able to hear the cries of his people. And that's a really cool thing. Like, massive props. I mean, even at the very end of this whole thing, Rudius is like, yeah, one up for these people in the eyes of the Orsted Corporation. Kind of cool. There's a lot of really cool kings that Rudius is meeting throughout this series. The fee kept people from coming in with trivialities, so it seemed like a system was fair. The kingdom wasn't a half-bad country. Of course, there was probably real problems in places that couldn't afford a gold coin. On the other hand, if you could petition the king directly, every guy off the street would be there. Sordid merchants who never got to hobnob with the king and the city's wealthy would bring in their petty grievances and seek personal gain. In any case, the king had been fully booked today, but someone canceled. A real break for Rudius. I wonder, yeah, it kind of makes me wonder, did the guy like go, oops, yeah, you were never in the book? Or again, did he like do an exchange and give the guy maybe an extra gold coin out of it? With the Austrian gold coin being worth 10 times that of a Berhil, it didn't hurt. People can't resist gold. Anyway, however this had happened, things were looking up. The audience was 15 minutes long, not much time. There was no need to panic though. Ruiz only had 2 requests. If he revealed his identity and made his case, the future would brighten up. Master Rudius, please proceed to the audience chamber. Ruiz turned to Doga. I'll be right back.
Uh-huh.
It's been a while.
Uh-huh.
Ruiz took a deep breath, stood up, and went down the corridor to the audience chamber. The chamber itself would get a C. It wasn't all that spacious. Carpet was drab, and the 8 soldiers standing around looked like they were bored. There weren't any ornaments either. Not a regal place. When he considered that commoners came here every day, maybe it was just right. Ruiz couldn't fault them on practicality. 3 stars. It's got to rank every single one of them. I do need to put together an entire chart of every single kingdom's ratings. Ruiz entered the audience chamber, proceeded to the bright spot, then knelt down and lowered his head. It's an honor, your majesty. After a moment, the king spoke up.
I see you're a man of gentility. Rise and state for me your name and your purpose in coming here.
Ruiz did as he was told and looked up. The king was an elderly man. He looked worn out, like he wasn't long for this world. If Ruiz was told that he was ill, he wouldn't have been surprised. My name is Ruiz Greyrat, follower of Dragon God Orsted, the second of the 7 great powers.
Oh, the dragon god, you say?
The king was unable to conceal his surprise. A positive reaction. This was a rarity. The king must know who the great powers were. Maybe that was thanks to their connection to the ogres. I can see that. I mean, I'm assuming this is not the same man as the one from the legends of when they first made the connection to the ogres, but he could probably be greatly connected and probably have heard some stories there through them. I don't doubt that. Or again, he's talking to the man god at some point, rent-free. Or at some point, this king has talked to the man god, rent-free.
Oh, the dragon god, you say? What business does an associate with the 7 great powers have with us? Nay, with this kingdom.
Well, your majesty, I heard that you plan to hunt devils in the Forest of No Return. I'm here to request that you call it off.
Call it off?
Yes, your majesty.
Why would you ask that?
Because the people of the forest are not devils. Ruiz told him about the... No, I think right there is... I mean, he explains everything to him properly, but it's like right there, I'm like, you probably shouldn't have started it there. You should probably say, because there's 2 separate things here, and I'm afraid that you're going to get it wrong. That there are people in that forest, and then there's these devils. The devils are wolves, and I'm afraid you're going to attack the people. Ruiz told him about the Superb tribe. They had lived in the forest since long ago, maybe even before Beryl Kingdom came into being. They were not a race commonly believed to be devils. In the distant past, the Superb made a contract with a nearby village to hunt the invisible monsters and keep them safe from harm. Recently, all the Superb contracted a plague, which meant the monsters hadn't been kept in check. Thanks to the efforts of the dragon god Orsted, they recovered from the plague. I like how he gives credit to Orsted. Nice way to at least put some brownie points in there. And then returned to hunting the monsters like before. Ruiz kept his explanation brief, but made sure to highlight how good the Superb were and how good Orsted was.
A race of devils, and now invisible monsters too. Your tale is a hard one to believe.
I thought you might say so, your majesty, and so I came with a proposal. The only way to understand is to see them with your own eyes. Would you consider sending someone, one of your people, to see the village for themselves? Ruiz would show them the secret life of the Superb. Womenfolk around the cooking pot. Men who hunted invisible monsters. Children entertaining themselves by throwing balls at the dragon god. He's like going to the village, and here you see the womenfolk, cooking around the pot, making delicious food for their men when they return from their hunts. And there's the men right there. They're actually coming to the gates right now with their hunts. Aren't they strong? Aren't they brave? Oh yeah, over here, that's the dragon god Orsted, and the kids are throwing balls at him. It's like so cute. Just throwing balls at him. He's just swatting them away. Dorky. It's dorky. The king stroked his chin, considering. Then he slowly shook his head.
Even if what you say is true, I cannot call off the hunting party at this hour. Many brave souls throughout the lands have already assembled here.
If your majesty would only convey to them that the people of the forest who dwell beyond the Earthworm Ravine are not devils, so that the hunting party doesn't attack them, that would be enough. The invisible monsters do exist. I humbly request that you could hunt those instead. We are prepared to compensate you, if gold is a concern. Since time immemorial, the Superb have kept this country safe and secret. Even now, they're not asking for special treatment. They only wish to be left to themselves, in the forest in a corner of your kingdom, where they burden no one. If your majesty refuses them even that, if you don't want them in your kingdom, then I'll make arrangements for their relocation myself.
You are a staunch ally of these Superb.
They saved my life when I was very young. As the king stroked his chin, out of the corner of Ruiz's eye, he noticed an official looking at the time. Your time is up. Please make your way out of the audience chamber. I beg you to consider my request, your majesty. I promise your kingdom will not regret it. Ruiz took another breath, stepped forward, and bowed.
Galaxon, Sandor.
2 men stepped forward. One had a handlebar mustache, other a face like a horse. I don't trust the horse people. I do not trust the horse people. It's another Nokopara. Don't trust that dude. I wonder if that means that one of them was the guy at the reception desk. I guess it's just two people with a handlebar mustache. Reyes thought that he was about to get thrown out on his butt. Apparently, his words didn't come across well.
Go with this man and confirm the truth of what he says.
Yes, Your Majesty. You're sure, Your Majesty?
I'm sending with you these soldiers. Know that if you have lied to me, I shall send off the hunting parter on the decided day personally.
Reyes panicked for a second, but the king would be sending someone with him. He wasn't rejecting him out of hand. Instead, making his decision after confirming the facts. Reyes liked this king. Maybe listening to petitions regularly made him amenable to suggestions. The credibility of the Brahil Kingdom in the eyes of Orsted Corporation just shot up. Good job. He's like, good job. The Orsted Corporation likes you. You've been Orsted approved. Thanks for your understanding, Your Majesty. Before he left, Reyes bowed once more. Again, yeah, I like this. Again, going back to how they explained how this kingdom does what they do. Seemingly, this is how they've structured it. Kind of implying the idea that the kingdom has always been like this. Since its making, they probably had something like this in play where they wanted to hear the people. No matter who you were, yes, with a stipulation of a pretty hefty amount just to make sure that not anybody walks in on the street, but still listens to his people. And again, right here, despite the fact that Rudius is pressing on him, even after the fact, he accepts it. I was kind of surprised the guy literally says, your time's up, get out of here. While it seems like the king's not done yet, but it could be something that the guy's used to. Okay, he heard his grievances, he gave his answer, time's up, get out of here. But before Rudius does, he pushes one more time, and he accepts it. It's really cool. Yeah, again, pretty cool king. I mean, it's not really saying much here, but it's enough to kind of, again, for even Rudius to see that, okay, this might be a pretty good kingdom right here. He's actually willing to listen. He's willing to send somebody. Now, question mark is, who's this Galaxun and Sandor? Could they be somebody questionable? But we'll see. We'll see. Pretty cool stuff there. Now, there is a side of me that almost wonders if this is all playing into Geese's plan. Because the assumption here is that Rudius gets here. He goes to that kingdom. He goes to the Superb village. He ends up finding out the Superb village is being hunted. It's no doubt that Geese isn't planning that this is going to be something that Rudius is going to realize. That Rudius is going to realize this hunting party's coming. And he's going to go to that king. And when he goes to that king, he's going to ask for that clearance. Don't come attacking us. And he'll have somebody ready to go with him, which will probably map out where they're located, find out where the Superbs are, and attack. So yeah, there's a side of me that believes the reason why the king responded the way he did is because he was ready, because he knew that some guy was going to show up that knew Dragon God Orsted and put something into play with this king that will lead into finding their location. Possibility. Again, that's a very kind of paranoid thing here. But again, we're talking about this is the battlefield. There's no longer an aspect of paranoia of the man god here. This place is the battlefield. So literally anybody could be a pawn on this chessboard. This is the chessboard. This battlefield is the chessboard, and everybody on it is a piece. So the question is just who is being used. And it is kind of suspicious that he knows who the dragon god is, when it seems like everybody else doesn't seem to give him much weight. I am actually surprised that Rudius kept it as, like, peaceful as he did. There was a side of me that almost believed that at some point Rudius was going to at least put a little bit of weight in there, and the idea of, like, look, if you go against these individuals, you'll be going against Orsted, who is literally trying to support these people because they will be crucial to Orsted's plan in the future. He didn't bring up anything about Laplace or anything like that, which he probably could have brought up at this point for the sake of getting the Brahil Kingdom behind them. But it does seem like his focus right now is to keep it simple. Go for this one single thing. I only have 15 minutes. Keep it quick, concise, hit the points, and go straight for that. But again, I do give him massive credits for not going the route of doing a threat, because the threat's not going to work. The threat's going to look really bad. It's a very risky thing to go for threats or anything like that. But it is good for him to bring up the fact that, yes, they've been keeping your kingdom safe for a long time. He brought up that before. That technically, if he removes the Superbs from the picture, like if he doesn't do this the way that he needs it, and they have to relocate the Superb, guess what happens to the wolves? They're going to start attacking that village, and then there's a chance they'll go even further than that. You could have nearby villages all being overtaken by these invisible creatures. So it's good that you actually do go along with this. It's beneficial to your kingdom and the safety of your people for you to go along with this. Because again, it seems like based on what we've gotten from these histories of the locals, that this is something that has crept up here recently. And they've been growing and growing and becoming a threat to this nearby village that moved into there. There's a good chance that those wolves could end up spreading further and further into this area. But yeah, everything has been kind of repairing itself. I do feel like it's time for Rudius to get another stumbling happening here, and it might actually be through bringing them there. Now, here's a big suspicious thing too. How does Rudius get them back to the village? The king says, okay, take these two and go back to your village. That's going to take them quite a bit of time to get down there. The hunt should be sent here soon. It could be possible the time that it takes Rudius to get to that village with them in tow, again, not using teleportation, because he can't. He might end up doing that just to save time, but he might possibly go with those individuals down to the village on foot, now probably on horseback. Would they be able to make it back in time before the scheduled time that they'd be sending the hunting party? Is the king going along with this full well knowing that they're not going to be able to get there in time? Meaning there's a good chance the king has sent Rudius with these two individuals to locate where the Superb were. Not to find out if the Superb are bad or not, but just to figure out where the Superb are. Because again, a big part of this whole hunting party is trying to figure out where the devils are, and he could be using Rudius to find out where they are. This could be a big plot to trick Rudius. That'd be interesting. That'd be interesting. And yeah, technically a lot of my suspicion grows on the fact that these two people were named. But anyways, cool stuff. Curious to see how we're going to wrap up the chapter, because I think there's only like 2 more chapters left in this volume. So I'll be curious how we're going to actually wrap up this entire volume. But we'll see. That's it for this Mushoku Monday. Hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Monday. We managed to plow through 3 chapters. Again, technically 2 of them were really quickly, but they were good chapters though. Good stuff. Again, the massive world building that was in the Vita chapter. Again, and getting a little more into Norn's side of the whole situation. Get a little bit more touch into Lucy and her difficulties that she's going through, which again, I think that a lot has to do with just, I think she craves her father, which really does suck when you think about it, how much she just wants to be with her father and her father's just never there. But good stuff overall, and excited to see where it goes from here. But anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Monday. As always, greatly appreciate you guys' support, your kind words. Thank you guys so much for dropping by, all the people in the chat there. Hey chat, hope you're doing well. Again, thank you to everybody that supports the channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships. It means a great deal to me. But where's my book? Until the next Mushoku Monday, you'll have a great one. It'll be tricky. It'll be tricky if we follow proper procedure. It'll be tricky if we follow proper procedures. You can't feed something like this. You can't feed something that needs detoxification. You can't feed something that takes. You can't feed something that takes detox. You can't feed something that needs detoxification to a per. You can't feed something that. You can't feed something that needs to.